The SCP Foundation is one of the most expansive horror communities online, consisting of thousands of entries from a bunch of different people all over the world. It's safe to say the SCP community goes far. But if you don't know what SCP is, it's more or less a fictional online database of things called anomalies, or SCPs. These could be a creature, a phenomenon, or even just an object, but the common theme is they don't line up with reality, as if this one being has the ability to ignore all the rules of the universe altogether. And obviously that could be kind of dangerous. So, there's a thing called the SCP Foundation, which, fictional of course, but hosts the database and is like an amalgamation of all the world's governments, like, into one, to try and contain these SCPs. So, these anomalies have like countless different effects. They can do a lot of shit. Some can like mimic voices, others are impossible to kill. Some can just like straight up destroy the world or the universe. It goes pretty far, goes pretty deep. And there's like a whole different like classification system, Euclid, safe, Keter, all that shit. We don't really need to get into that right now, but since this community is so expansive, there have been hundreds of community members over the years to make content revolving around the Foundation. And one of the most popular forms of this content was just reading SCP documents or lore. Now, turning the research paper-esque documents into a digestible video format did wonders for the SCP community, since it just lowered the bar of entry a fuck ton for the community, since no longer did you have to read a fucking research paper, but just watch a 20-minute YouTube video and you get the idea of an SCP. So, since this content got more digestible, bar of entry lowered, more and more people started to get into SCP, and more people were just taking interest in the community in general. And while this is great at all at first, a community's popularity can only let so many people in before a bad actor appears. With the introduction done, I'll now move on to the main topic of this video. SCP Explained is one of the many channels on YouTube dedicated to making purely SCP content. An offshoot of the infographic channel being created on July 5th, 2020, and uploading its first video on SCP-173 12 days later on the 17th. This now makes the channel roughly 4 years old. Their content style is heavily reminiscent from the source they came from. The infographic show, another even bigger channel with subs in the tens of millions compared to SCP's Explained 2 mil. They also hosted another SCP/horror channel called Oddity with only around 100k and being abandoned for the last 2 years. All this is to say the people who run the infographic show, and by extension SCP Explained, love farming content. A few years ago, their content was doing fine with their multiple uploads a day, making the algorithm worship the ground they walked on, and the infographic show to this day is still doing fairly well in that regard. Though I can't really say the same for SCP Explained. SCP Explained has fallen far from its peak in the early 2020s. At first the comment was fine, not the highest quality SCP content on the market, but for sure serviceable. I watched their content from time to time back in the day, and even though it felt like it lacked the tone of some of the other SCP content creators at the time, it could generally get a point across. And even if going with the sterilized approach on something that's based solely on being horrifying is a bit of an odd concept to me, they knew their user demographics and they knew what to upload. The community in general, while not erupting in celebration that a random content farm had stuck its hands in a SCP content pie, were not really all negative either. There wasn't really that much to complain about with this channel, but slowly but surely over the years, like 106 sprayed his liquids all over the channel or something, it started to decay. At first there were some really small cracks in the channel, really minor shit like reusing the same SCPs over and over again to farm engagement, or more or less re-uploading old content in the form of tier lists or compilations to get more views. And at first these things actually helped the channel, giving it more growth and some of its most popular videos. But this formula couldn't last forever. There's only so many times that even the young audience could watch 096 fighting 682, or whatever slop they decided to repeat that day. So, slowly but surely, viewers started to drop off, either getting bored of SCP Explained itself and hopping ship to other SCP creators, or honestly just losing interest in SCP altogether. So, what did SCP Explained decide to combat this problem with? Well, I don't really think they picked the right solution here. Let's get straight into the rumored solution I just brought up 10 seconds ago. Like I said, they were fairly infamous for repeating the SCPs that got them the most engagement, commonly using 173, 049, 682, 096, 111, or 001, my bad, etc. as their main draws to their videos. This really isn't that significant of a point though. It's pretty common to focus on the most popular things in a community, albeit a bit repetitive. Next, they started the list that I also talked about earlier. Top 21 most popular SCPs 2021. Yeah, I know, a lot of 21s in that sentence. And top 15 wholesomest SCPs, shit like that. This was another early step they took while the channel still had pretty high viewership. It also isn't really egregious and is a common form of YouTube content, and is still today. Where things start to get problematic for me though, is the clickbait they started running on SCPs. Now, they would usually either make it more dangerous looking, or weirdly more attractive looking, to get viewers to click on a video more often. Now, I don't really care about hyping up a safe SCP to make it look scary or something, but something with their target demographic being mostly kids, and them just starting to make suggestive thumbnails makes me a bit uneasy. Staying on the topic of suggestive thumbnails, as the viewership of the channel declined, you can see a rise of overly sexual thumbnails on the channel. And these aren't borderline suggestive like the old ones anymore. The intent is clearly there. So now, instead of actually making topics that SCP fans care about and are interested in, SCP Explained would rather farm clicks on coon-brained children who get off to YouTube thumbnails. And they've even stooped as far as to taking old thumbnails and reusing it years later. Which, by the way, this thumbnail is also sexually explicit. The channel has fallen. The video ideas are reused, the content in the video is reused, the thumbnail is most likely explicit clickbait that's also probably reused, and the only way the channel can break 100k is by putting softcore in their thumbnails. The overall theme here is the people behind the channel don't give a fuck about it, or really SCP in general. They saw a profitable community, and now they're still squeezing it 4 years later for all it's worth. If you're looking for something related to SCP that's even mediocre, I wouldn't go to SCP Explained. You'd have better luck scrolling through videos made 10 years ago. So overall, while SCP Explained had a somewhat decent start, it's really just degenerated over the years since its inception. Views are down, and it seems like SCP Explained's content farm is starting to suck the land dry. It's farmed as many clicks as it could for as long as it could, but if they don't change anything soon, the channel will just keep rotting away. Which really isn't the worst thing in the world, honestly, but SCP Explained wasn't some big groundbreaker in the community. It was there to take advantage of increased attention, so when that dried up, the channel obviously would too. They also have some dubious practices, which I brought up earlier, which is an obvious attempt to remain relevant on this channel. In some ways, they don't really want it to go the same way Oddity did, which was their other channel I brought up earlier. But despite their best attempts from the team, it seems, at least to me, that SCP Explained's temporary success is all but rotted away in the modern day.